right, so with pleasure, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Julian. I've had the pleasure with working with Julian on a couple of projects. Julian's been programming for over 25 years. Seems like 50 years with all the knowledge that he has, so it's always a pleasure of having him on the project, and I'm really looking forward to his talk. So please welcome Julian.
Good morning. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Great, awesome. So for those of you who were here last year, I did a talk on microservices, which was really just a talk on services. And it was a bit of a trick to get you to start using the EE service layer. So this year, I figured I would take a much deeper dive and do a much more hands-on talk on the EE service layer. As colleague said, I'm Julian Fann. I'm the technical lead at Vector Media Group. And Vector, most of you know who we are. We're out of New York City, and we're at almost 50 people now. And it's an amazing team to work for. And the three of us are here this year, and we've been a part of the EE community for many, many years. And it's really important for us to show up and be here, and giving talks is one way that we try to give back. So this talk is going to be divided into really two sections. I'm going to get through the slides really fast, as quickly as I can, because I'm going to do a demo in an IDE. So just as a quick primer on services. So first, what are services and why should I care about them? We're going to then take a look at the EE service layer and how you can consume EE services, and then how you can write your own. So what are services? So let's start with a definition. This is from a Wikipedia page on systems architecture. So it's a set of software functionalities with a purpose that different clients can reuse for different purposes. So, and what that really means is you have sort of a succinct, focused piece of functionality that multiple different consumers of that functionality can use. And we'll get into exactly what that looks like. And a service is really, this is more definitions from Open Group. So it's a logical representation of a repeatable business activity that has a specific outcome. So if you're consuming a service, generally you're going to know what you want the service to give you back. It's self-contained. It might be a service composed of several other services, and it's a black box to consumers of the service. And what that really is talking about is you don't need to know how the service works to use it. There'll be an interface that makes it super simple to use. So just a quick types of services, and this is not all inclusive, but these are sort of some of the most common. So there's the adapter, and this really connects two incompatible systems together using a service. And a really good example of that might be a payment gateway. So you have an e-commerce platform, say Cartthrob maybe, and you need to connect to some payment processor. So in the middle, you're going to write a payment gateway that translates how the e-commerce system works to what the payment gateway wants. So then you're going to have a facade, and this is really what I was talking about before with the black box. So you have a very simple interface and maybe a ton of complexity behind that interface. And actually, I have a note on facade. A good example of a facade would be an API. So there's a contract in place. You know how it works. You want to say post a message to Twitter. You don't need to know how all of the cascade of servers of Twitter work in order to post to Twitter using the API. A proxy provides an interface to the combined results of more than one system. And a really good example of this is how Google Maps works. So you put in direction, you want to get directions, and there's a single API call that goes out, and then it aggregates across thousands and thousands of servers that then spool up and give you the combined results from the single interface. So, and then controller is probably the one that most of you might be the most familiar with. And this is handled in MVC applications, but it's also extensively used in the core of Expression Engine. And this essentially provides a mediation layer between the request cycle, gathering the data, and then providing the response. So the controller is kind of the mediator between all these other layers. So let's go into some of the benefits, why are services good. So services are inherently simple to use, good ones anyway. And they abstract all the complexity away so that you can reliably just ask for something and then you'll get back the results. Reusability. Services are designed to be used in multiple contexts, so the service interface should be very simple, and the service shouldn't care where it's being used. It's going to give you the results in the same way. So in EE, this might be a piece of functionality that delivers data, whether you're requesting it from a template or from within another add-on. So it doesn't care which side of the request you're looking for. Adaptability, which is kind of similar to reusability, but one service can be used in a variety of ways. So just because a service is built to fulfill one need, it may be able to do many other things. Services should be really narrow in focus so that it doesn't make an assumption in terms of the context. Availability, and this will become really clear why this is important during the demo. Services are available to many clients, so it's easy to get access to the service once you've fulfilled those requirements, maybe authentication or something like that. So that was services in general. Let's look at how the EE service layer itself works. So most of you know this call, and this generally is sort of the master EE object. But starting in version 3, we were able to pass in a parameter, which gives you access to one of the core services. So in this case, config. And you can ask this config to, say, get you a value out of the config file, such as the base URL. And there'll be a number of different methods on each service that you can ask for. There's a ton of first-party services built into Expression Engine. This is the full list as of last week, and you can find there's docs right on the EE docs under add-on development and a section called services, and each service has its own documentation. The slides will be totally available later as well. But yeah, feel free. So there's some of these I've never used, but I've used a ton of these, and I find a lot of them really helpful. And config service is really sort of a no-brainer to use. But if you've ever had to make a table-based control panel view, the CP table service is incredibly powerful, and it can bring your CP template down to, say, 3 lines. It's amazing. So, and no markup. Third-party services, so add-ons can actually register their own services. So here's an example from FormGrab, and you just use a prefix before the service name, separated by a colon, which will be the add-on's short name, which is the same as its directory name. So in this case, this is the form service from FormGrab. And so here's an example call to that particular service, which is I want to get a form submission by a form ID, and then you get the submissions back. So this is kind of a really clear example of I have no idea how this works behind the scenes. I just want the submissions, and it's a one-liner. So how do you know if an add-on has services? Right now, the easiest way is to look in any add-on's add-on setup file. So if it's got services, you'll see, and this is the one from FormGrab, sort of truncated so you can see it. There's a services key in this array. And so that form, there's just one service in this particular add-on, is the form service, and it loads in this service/form namespace. So as I said, I'm going to go through these slides really quickly because you're going to see all this stuff again in the demo. So additionally, of course, you can build your own services, and this can be powerful even if you're not doing commercial add-on development. You might just be building a site. Services can really help you as well. So why would you create a service? Services allow you to create much leaner primary add-on files. Your mod file or plugin file can be really just what EE needs to, say, get a template tag going, and then the rest can be handed off to the service. It also it will allow you to write more modular code and much more easily maintainable code. And Khalid talked a lot about end-to-end testing and abstracting things into libraries. And this is the same exact principle, which is if you have things in a single class that you can run a unit test on, it's a lot easier than having to test, say, a mod file. Then you can also reuse these services across your add-on really easily. And then finally, and this is something that I would love to see more of, you can allow other developers to use your services in their add-ons. So somebody could actually extend or provide additional functionality on another add-on. So, and I will show you that too. What really should be made into a service, and what are good examples? And these are just a few. You can make so many things into services. You might make an interface to an API or a third-party service like Khalid was showing. So you could make an SQS EE add-on that uses a service, and then all the rest of the add-ons can now access SQS as well. And that would be the adapter pattern we talked about before. Encapsulated business logic, so something that maybe is really complicated, but you use in a bunch of places in your site build code. You can put that into a service and then use essentially the facade pattern to say, let me just kick off this huge process and let it go, such as syncing large amounts of data. A functionality that combines data sources. So if you wanted to aggregate data from 2 different APIs, you can essentially implement the proxy pattern in that case. And something that I actually have seen is in the form grab service is the controller pattern, where you're wrapping simple methods around the model itself. So it may just fill out parameters in a certain way and give you some shortcuts to using these commonly accessed model methods. So how do you set up your service? First, you have to create a service directory in your add-on directory with capital S. Then you need to make sure you define the namespace in the add-on setup file, which I will also show in the demo. And this really you should be doing this anyway, but services won't work without it. Then you create a service class in the service directory, and this is probably the bulk of the work, is creating the functionality itself. And then once you're done, you can register the service in your add-on setup file, and that can be done in a variety of ways, and that's kind of a very powerful part of this. So on to the demo. And I do have a GitHub repo if you want to check it out, and feel free to follow along now or later. So I'll leave this up for a second in case anybody wants to grab it. All right. So great. And so here it is, by the way. And the demo is going to be based on EE4 Core Edition that I downloaded last week. So it's pretty latest, but I guess this is going away soon anyway, right? But it doesn't require anything super complicated. This is a very pared down install. And there is a database if you want. I don't expect you to get this all set up right now. So, and then I do also use another library that I will be showing how to use Composer to essentially take a Composer package and turn it into a service. So my demo is a hot chicken blog. So we're going to start sort of with it's just a really simple blog. And you'll notice the whole content of the body is right on the homepage for each one. So I think I have 4 posts or 5, and I did not implement pagination because that was sort of unnecessary. And then we do have a detail view, and really it's the same thing. It gives you a permalink, and it gives you some related articles. we'll sort of kind of be looking at, well, let's say you're doing this for a client, and they say, okay, this blog's been great, but we want comments, right? And we'll just pretend like Expression Engine doesn't have comments built in. But so let's just take a look first at our initial templates, just so that it'll make sense. So this is the home page, and you'll see in the repo, I'm not going to be doing a lot of typing, so I'm just going to switch out some embeds. So for each of these articles, we just have a really, really simple markup. I have one channel and I think 3 fields. So title, image, and a body field. So, and then we pull in some related articles if we're on the detail view. So client says, give me comments. I want comments. So we say, OK, well, I don't really want to deal with all the form stuff. There's a great add-on out there that deals with it, in a really simple state, which is the form grab add-on. So let's build comments really simply using form grab. So actually, let's go ahead and switch the embed real quick so you can see it implemented. So if we just switch to Article 2, and then we refresh on the detail page, now you'll see we have a nice little comments form. And so, yeah, we can make a comment. So now we have a comment, and we can keep posting these, and we get a little count. So I'll show you how all of that works right now. So form grab is great. You can, if we look in comments, we just include another embed for comments. So I've got which then has 2 more. But you'll see that the comments, right, we call this hot comments add-on, and we get the comment count if we get anything. So if there are no comments, we didn't show a number. So, and then we're going to have a form, and we have the list of comments. So comments form is really simple. The normal form grab call is just the exp form grab form tag. We give it a name and a title. And this hot comments add-on, all it's doing is taking an entry ID and a title of that entry, and it's just going to normalize the naming convention for us. That's all that's doing. And then in the list, we've got a list of comments just by entry ID. So the way this is built, form grab, if we look at its add-on setup file, it has a couple models, and it has a service. So let's use the form service. Oh, and also, before we even look at how it's done, let's go ahead and look at the service class and see what we have available. So this is typically what, if I am trying to use another add-on services, I'll just go and take a look at the class. So some really basic interface, and they're usually good comments. So I want a collection of all forms, or I want to count them. So we're using, in our case, get submissions by form ID. So which calls their model, and then filters it down by that form ID, and we get everything. So let's look at hot comments. So hot comments, just really, really basic, simple little add-on setup file, and it's just a plugin, and it's, maybe 100 lines. So we've got our form. This is what creates the naming convention. So we're just going to prefix this with, so comments underscore and then the ID, and then comments for and the title. And that gives form grab, or like a really nice interface in the control panel too. So you can go ahead and sort of moderate comments if you needed to. So then we're going to say get. So we'll take in the entry ID, and then we're going to go ahead and look up the form using the model by its name. If there's not a form, get nothing back. So, and then here is the service call, though. So we're going to say get submission by form ID. All we have to do is say form grab, form service. Go ahead and give me that form. And then we can loop through, and we can sort of normalize the data to how we we want it. So we've got the date. I set that to be Central Time, just for this demo. We get the name, email, and message. And then we can just go ahead and run parse variables, and then you have form results. We can also just get the count, too. And in this case, we're actually using the model service, which is a core service that allows you to access any model as well. So we need to get the form, just like before. And then we're going to just call the model out to say, how many form submissions for that form do I have? And then, because you can't just go ahead and throw count in there because that's a reserved key, we're going to use comment count. Otherwise, you'll always get 1 because you're on that entry. So then, again, run parse variables, and we can get the count. So it makes building some really simple tags really, really easy. So we have comments now. So next, now that we have comments, let's actually, so the client comes back to us and says, you know, this is all great, but I want to, the homepage is getting really long. Let's truncate the body content on the homepage and only show the full on the detail view. So we're going to just make our own add-on because we really like that other composer package for truncation. We've used it in a ton of places. So let's go ahead and we're going to swap to Article 3. Okay. So now our homepage is a lot nicer. So we just shortened up these, and then you still get the full article once you go into the detail view. So how do we do it? So if we go ahead and look at Article 3, really all we've added here is wrapping around the body, we've added this truncate call. And we haven't given it any parameters. We just told it to truncate. So one of the things in building this add-on that we decided we were going to do is maybe this will be used in a bunch of places, so let's make things really distributable and easily configurable globally. So you will see that in the config, we've got a little trunk setting. So we're saying we want 600 characters in length, and yeah, let's add ellipsis afterwards. So that was important that we could do that globally, so then you don't have to do it on every template call. But then also we wanted to set some defaults. So let's look at the actual plugin. So in add-on setup, you can see, and we're calling this trunk NS just to differentiate between the next one. So this is the simple version. So still just a plugin file. Oh, and real quick, we are pulling in Composer right here in the add-on setup file. So, and Composer has just that same package that I showed from GitHub before. So we've got this kind of ugly looking constructor. So we're going to load in that config file. And then we're also going to pull in the default config from the add-on folder as well. So you see we have the same keys, and I have this preserve words setting as well. So we don't necessarily need to, we're OK clipping in the middle, but that's an option. And then we're going to go ahead and merge those together so that users can override the defaults. And then we're going to just new up this truncator service class that comes from the package, and then we can go ahead and use it. So pull in possible parameters. We didn't pass any, along with the input, which is coming from tag data. We're going to grab all this config. And then what we're really doing is we're composing up our options and making it work with the package parameters. So pass in the input, length. The ending is what this package wants, do we want to put ellipsis, what's going in there. This package actually allows you to put anything there. And then exact just means, do we preserve words? Meaning, are we going to do an exact length to truncate or not? So you can see this tag gives us truncate, and then we've made some helpers, truncate characters, truncate words. And then finally, there is the ability to get config, which just gives us a set of keys that we actually want. So this is kind of a lot, just to use a composer package. But it does work. And it does end up with really clean template code. So this is great. Now we have truncation. But then kind of right after that, our client then says, we want to pull in partner content for, we have some deals, some sponsor deals. They're going to pay us if we can put some articles. You've probably all seen them. So let's take a look at what that looks like. And now we're going to see that there's a problem with how we did this. Okay, so we're going to go to 4, which is the final one. Okay, and the partner content's on the detail view, so we can go ahead and look there. So in addition to comments, we have all this partner content. So Serious Eats and Eater Nashville, all this, they're trying to promote their articles. They're paying us to put them on our blog. So let's just say this service that we're calling out to, I don't know, it's complicated to truncate in the template. We'll just play it that way. So we really need to truncate before we even get there. So let's look at the partner content. So let's actually set this up real quick, which is if you need to truncate before the template call, you're going to have to re-implement truncation all over again in the exact same way just to use it in partner content add-on. So conversely, we're going to say, let's use a service so we can share that truncation between two places. So actually, before partner content, let's just go ahead and show our new version of trunk that now uses the services. And this is kind of like the meat of what I wanted to get to. So still have that auto load, but now we actually have a use statement in here that's going to load a class. And Expression Engine is going to auto load this class for us. The composer auto load is just pulling in that other package. So we've got our namespace. And now we have a services definition. So that same functionality as truncate now is offloaded. So we're going to do it all here. I'm going to come back to this, but let's look at how much cleaner our plugin file now looks. So now it's just was 100 lines, it's 40 lines now with a lot of comments. So we still want to grab the parameters and the tag data, and then we just go ahead and call our own service, passing in those parameters. And then, of course, we still have the helper ones that just defaults some of the settings to use characters or words. So let's go ahead and look at that. So pretty much the exact same logic, but in a different place. So we've got the config, we've got the truncator, and that's the same package. We're still replacing these config values just like before. And this truncate method is nearly the same exact call that we had before, except that when we want to do the other ones, we're in the class. We're just going to call the same method and pass different options. So characters, words, those are just one-liners now. Get config is the exact same thing. So we just moved all this code into here, and it made that plugin file super clean. Let's look at how this gets registered, though. So we're actually going to use the config service to grab our plugin's config, which just uses the prefix. And you can actually use dot notation to drill down into an array within that using the config service, which is nice. And then we also are going to use the config service to grab the user config out of the global config file. Same key, and then we just merge them together. Or sorry, we merge them together in the library, but we're going to pass nothing if the user hasn't set anything. And then we just new up the truncate class. Why was this useful? Certainly the plugin file is much cleaner, but what's more interesting is that in partner content, this is it. We can just call its service that we wrote, get me the feed, parse variables. Really nice, clean. So let's look at this service real quick. Say we have an affiliate ID, all that stuff. We're going to go ahead and fetch. So we're going to get feed, which in this case literally is just pulling an array that's static. And then we're going to loop through, and we're going to say the excerpt is just a truncated version of the excerpt that we're getting passed. And we can pass a separate value for the length, and we're going to preserve words this time. So we're going to say true. So it's really easy. We didn't have to implement truncation. We just called our other service. Pass some other data, and then I'm randomizing it in this case, and then return. So this is like such a simple service, but to add the truncation was no big deal at all. Versus if I didn't do that, I would actually have to re-implement truncation in this add-on separately. So sort of in summary on this stuff, services allowed us to be a lot more efficient, keep those files a lot cleaner, and also in the future when we have a new request that comes down the line, we're already set up to do this. We wrote truncation, it's done, we don't ever have to do it again. It's ready to go. So that's pretty much my demo. Let's go back to slides. So wrapping up, so services make your life easier and your code cleaner. So they're just much less painful to do common things over and over again. And especially if this was a really simplistic example. If you're working with things as complex as what Khalik was showing off earlier, this is paramount to do stuff like this. And the service layer just makes it automatic. You don't even need Composer to auto-load these. Expression Engine will do that for you. Make useful things into services, especially if you're doing a site build. You can give yourself a bunch of tools that will then make all the rest of it super easy. One sort of word of caution is it may seem really great to say, oh, well, this add-on uses this great utility service. Let me just add this in. If you're a commercial add-on developer, you don't know if that other add-on is going to be around, so you don't know if you have the service available. So just don't depend on an add-on service unless you know it's going to be installed. So if it's your site, of course you know, not a big deal, but if you're distributing something, you can't really depend on an add-on unless you know it's going to be installed. An example of this working that way, though, is let's say, let's just pretend that Matrix had services, which would be great if it did. There might be a case where your commercial add-on interacts with Matrix if it's installed. At that point, you can start using the service because you've already checked. So even if you don't write services, at the very least, start leveraging a lot of the core services. There's so much to discover there, and yeah, it's just a lot of stuff that will make your life a lot easier. And the folks at Ellis Lab have put a lot of work into this part, and I don't think a lot of people have really fully taken advantage of it. So, yeah, so keep in touch. I definitely will post the slides, and I definitely can post a lot of the links that I put in here, and the repos is available, so you can dive in much more detail to go through that repo as well. So, questions, though?
I just was going to ask, can I see the slides from the beginning that had the funny little diagrams on it?
Yeah.
The controller.
Absolutely.
The different. I liked those and I wanted to sketch them quick. Yes, so.
Yeah, these were fun to make. Question?
Got that one.
In your template slide, you have the service that you depended on nested in the outer shell of what you had written. Is that always does it generally always stack up to being nested in templates?
No, not necessarily. In fact, most of the time that I've leveraged services, I haven't even written a template tag for it. In this case, that was just to modify what FormGrab was doing itself. And so I didn't have to put in the template the convention. So originally when I started working on that part, I didn't have an extra template tag, but it just made life easier, and then you don't have to know how it works again. So kind of using the service principles in the template layer. Other questions? All right, thank you guys.